Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, a podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I am your host, Matt.
And guess what? I am your co-host. I'm also host. I'm host as well, David.
And guess what, motherfuckers? I actually played a game on Thursday.
Woo!
My usual Thursday group. I know I shouldn't have closed out of my soundboard here, else I would have played the "We've done it, we've done it."
Yes.
My usual Thursday group, since it is still summertime and everybody has their kids and their kids are now going back to school, we haven't played in like 2 or 3 weeks on my Thursday game, which was supposed to be our Blades in the Dark game. We've played once since we started.
Oh no.
And Dan, the guy that's running it right now with Blades in the Dark, he said, you know what? In the meantime, until we are set and ready to come back every other week at least, maybe we should try something different. And I said, something like an RPG club where we just play one-shots every week for whoever can show up.
Sure.
He said, that works great. And I said, this will work as long as 4 of us show up, someone to run it and then 3 players.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, all right, groovy, we can do that. It almost didn't happen. There was 2 people out of the 5 of us that said that they might not be able to make it. And I was like, well, if we have at least 3 players, I have a Daggerheart one shot that we can run. And they got really excited because none of them have played Daggerheart yet. They're like, oh, you want to play Daggerheart? I was like, all right, if you can make it, I'll fucking run it. And I made a quick one shot I've been reading through the Daggerheart book and going through the campaign frames. And oh my God, I fucking love these campaign frames. The one that I went with was Beast Feast. It's called Beast Feast. The synopsis of it is deep underground in these labyrinthian caves. There was this protective magic that kept all these horrible monsters at bay deep underground. And that magic, like lock or whatever it was, has been broken, and now the beasts have been set free and have been just ravaging the wilds and the towns around them, mostly destroying all the food. So food has become very scarce, and now adventurers have been coming up in droves to go back down into these caves to get as deep as they can to find the source of the protection magic and then try to put it back together and drive all these creatures back down. The big thing of it, in each of these campaign frames, like I could go and read it for you, but I'll give you the little synopsis. If any of you out there is an anime fan like me and you've never ever seen Dungeon Meshi, or AKA Delicious in Dungeon, what you do is a very quirky, fun game. It's meant to be very, humorous and stuff like that. But the main part of the game is because food is so scarce on the surface, that when you go deep down, you could be down in these labyrinths in this, this dungeon for weeks, trying to find your way down. So whenever you defeat a monster, you harvest it for its parts to cook later. And there's a whole mechanic of when you go and you look over this, you have to do a monster knowledge roll to find out what it is. And then the players actually say, like what was the first one? It was an acid burrower, I think it was. It's just this big worm that spits acid and has acidic blood. And they all just get to say, one of them was just like, I want a little piece of the chitin, the skin there. I'm going to take a mandible, the antenna, the eye. And one of them was just like, what if I took the acid? I was like, you could roll for it. It says in there that you could roll for any of it. And what they do is then they roll to find the flavor profile of each piece, and it gives them a number and a die that's associated with it. And as soon as they're ready to cook, which could be during a downtime, it's a downtime activity to cook these things. Everybody throws all the dice that they've accumulated into a pot, and then you pull out is your point value that you had. You roll it, that many dice, you roll it, you add it up. Everybody does this, and that's a score that you pool that can be done to take away stress, bring back hit points. It could be used for a whole bunch of things, and I thought that was really cool. And that's what we played. We played for about 3 hours, got through the one shot, and everybody had a blast with it. So I'm very happy that I got to play. I'm glad that everybody had a good time. There was a lot of laughs because I made it fucking goofy as hell. And unfortunately, these campaign frames I'm going to dive into a lot more. I've been reading a lot of them. What is the other one that I really want to do? The Colossus one. I can't remember what it's called. But either way, there's one. It's a Western setting. It's a Weird West setting with all these colossi roaming around. Those are the only creatures that you actually fight, but fighting one could take days. But because it's a Colossus, and if you've ever played Shadow of the Colossus, it's a lot like that. A lot of rolls of trying to connect and climb up this fucking thing in order to get to its weak spot. I'm really pissed because there's a campaign frame that, it just screams my name, and it because it's called Motherboard, and I was just like, "Fuck yes, this is like my shit right here," and it is. It's all about an AI uprising that started to destroy humanity, and in each of these campaign frames it says what races you can and can't play, what classes you can use. So for this one, of course, Clanks and a couple other ones for Motherboard you couldn't do. All magic is actually technology based, things like that. But when I was reading through it, it was the one that seemed the most fucking boring. It was so boring that it pissed me off. There's a couple other ones that I would definitely like to go. The Witherwild. This one I know David would love. Five Banners Burning. It's a very, it's set, to be a very diplomatic, city states against each other.
Oh, that's
sort
awesome.
of thing. Age of Umbra. We all know if you've been following Critical Role. That's the grimdark version. There it is. Colossus of the Drylands. That's one that I want to get into. But those were fun, and I wanted to talk about that because if you guys, anybody out there that's listening that hasn't played Daggerheart, if you plan on running one, I highly suggest that you look at the campaign frames. Each of them comes with additional rules as well as mechanics that make that setting or campaign frame kind of its own to really make the world seem different than all the others instead of just, throwing a skin over another campaign setting. While I was also reading through the book, I forgot when we did the Daggerheart beta, each character sheet has on it questions to give each other that the characters can talk to each other about. There is, of course, background questions as well as connections. And connections I thought were always very cool. Where else did I see this? This was in Titan's Grave. Titan's Grave from Fantasy Age. They had questions like this for the players when you first started, because we've all graduated from you meet in a tavern days.
Well, not everybody. I think
not
some people
everybody
still use that.
But I haven't played in a game that we didn't all start together and know each other in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And these connection questions really help out. If you've been together, if you've been adventurers together for a couple months, hell, even a couple weeks, you guys are together quite often. You're going to share some information, as well as you're going to find bonds and, like I said, connections from the party. But this got me thinking. David was asking today about what topic we should do, and I looked over the list, and I was looking at the very bottom of it where there's like three things that we haven't done yet. I saw, damn it, where was it? Did I already? Oh, developing character relationships. And it made me think, ooh, this would be a good thing to talk about. Relationships in the party as well as outside of the party. Uh, so, David, you want to start us off on this?
Sure, yeah. I I do think that it's this particular topic is something that isn't usually embedded in the mechanics of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to like games that encourage it, um, to kind of give you a mechanism. Maybe if you're a player that's not more inclined toward the acting, role playing aspect of RPGs.
True.
So many players aren't, and they probably would benefit from some sort of schema that allows it to be a thing. I recall like a little bit of that in Daggerheart, and we just played the one time. I would be
Yeah.
interested in playing another one shot or another continuation from what we played last time
Mm.
if we ever have some time for that.
Well, now
And
I
it
have
was
I've got it made, so I can run it whenever we want.
and Titan's Grave did have some of that. I liked that game and that system, although it felt a little like it floundered at points, but it
Well,
really has
because
some
there was
good.
only one real thing that I liked about Fantasy Age. That's not true.
Hmm?
I like the skill system, but it's the stunts. The stunt system is the fucking best. That's the only thing that really sticks out from that game, and
I
that's
mean,
what I
it's
love
the
about
only
it.
thing that makes it unique, but I
Right.
think it has a decent synergy of other core elements.
Hmm.
But the world and everything just feels a little
Yeah.
underbaked.
The Titan's Grave world was, yeah, bleh.
It's
It wasn't what, and David can attest to this. All I wanted forever, because there was a while that a lot of systems and like campaign settings were just like, it's like Thundar or He-Man, where science meets magic and sorcery controls everything, and it's just like, yes, yes, this is what I want. I want a barbarian on a hoverboard just fucking flying around and swinging his sword at robots. I think that's the coolest shit in the world. And every time that they say that, it never ends up being that.
Yeah, what was the one that you had, Hyperborea?
Hyperborea.
The art communicates that that's that type of
Yep.
game, but when you
Clerics
read
with
the
laser pistols and shit. I was like, fuck
yeah,
yes.
yeah, but it really doesn't, like when you read it, it's like, oh, this is an OSR or fucking like second edition
Yeah.
D&D crunch fest,
Yep.
right? Like, and so yeah, I'm with you. I kind of wanna. I'm still waiting for that Herculoids, Thundar the Barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
He-Man kind of world, because it splits the difference between like uh kind of pseudo sci-fi fantasy and like sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
Like you're playing a game in a Frank Frazetta painting or
Yeah,
something. Like
exactly.
it's
I just
really
love
cool.
that mix of science and sorcery. I love
Yeah,
that shit.
it probably the best example of it. It would probably be God, I forget the name of the actual series, but it's by is it Clark Ashton Smith? The John Carter from Mars
Oh
series.
yeah. Hmm.
One of the most influential kind of like weird tales, like somewhat sword and sorcery, but kind of science fantasy that
Hmm.
like is so influential that by like time they made it into a movie, everybody was like, this just seems really tropey and cliched. It's like, yeah, where do you think
Yeah.
all those tropes and cliches come from, asshole? Right? Like
Yeah.
this thing was made in the 1920s. Like it's fucking like every single thing you've seen in the last 70 something years is influenced by this
Yep.
one piece of
Yeah.
like
Right.
art.
It's
Um,
either Mandrake the Magician, Flash Gordon, uh,
yep,
the Phantom, or John Carter from Mars.
yep, yep.
Of Mars,
And if
sorry.
it's fantasy, it's Robert E. Howard or it's
Yep.
Fritz Leiber or it's it's like a handful of other things, Tolkien. Um, but no, so I guess from the outset, I like when there's embedded mechanics for that, but there probably is some tactics for thoughtful players in the absence of such said mechanics as to how you kind of build relationships among other PCs in the party and with NPCs as well. Some of that's in the GM's court, but since we're talking about it from the GM perspective, um, we can kind of deal with both. So at the top of the list, I would say the most important thing is probably to start with, let me backtrack. There's two types of ways to establish character relationships. One is an organic progression of the relationship. Now, that often is going to happen within the context of the game, right? It's going to happen from the context of like when you start the game to when the campaign ends, and the characters will develop relationships toward that end. And it can be organic, and you can position yourself well to allow organic growth. But then the other is just kind of like to force it in and
Mm,
like to kind of shoehorn it in almost as if it's always been there, because so much of the role playing of an RPG is often more akin to improv, right? And so
mhm.
you can backfill things in and say that that's, you know, this is, we have this relationship, or we this was a thing that happened in the past, because it was never fleshed out before, and so there's no need to feel married to it. It's that whole um, thing that we talk about with the sundry equipment thing. Like, oh, I have a piece of chalk in my, you know, belt pouch, and it's like, and I scrawl on the wall like this message or whatever to someone, and if you're playing in the sort of game that's a real crunchy OSR kind of thing, then yeah, maybe the GM's going to be like, I didn't see the piece of chalk on your equipment list, so you don't have it. But for most of us that have kind of like, I don't want to say evolved. That makes it sound like that's a the first way is a bad way to be, but have kind of just gotten tired of that sort of like persnickety, hyper detail oriented crunch. Yeah, they'll just say fine, sure, why not, right? So once you kind of understand that those two ways are the ways in which you're likely to establish a relationship, the first order of business, at least in my estimation, and I'm curious to hear Matt's thoughts on this, is to establish what type of bond you're looking to have with another character.
Mhm.
Because you should probably be thinking in terms of that. Like, instead of, you could like just allow a relationship to develop organically, but if you actually want to ensure that you're there, that you have a relationship with each member of the party, or with a certain NPC or something, and you want to architect a certain type of relationship, then you need to establish what sort of bond you want, right? Is this a romantic bond? Is it
Mhm.
you know, one that is a frenemy situation? Is it a father-son, mother-daughter, father-daughter, father-son relationship? Some sort of parental thing? Is it a mentorship role? Is it a
Mhm.
there's all sorts of bonds that you can forge, and at least in my head, that's where I would start. Is that where you would start, Matt?
No, normally, I always start with like I want to know why the PCs. Why do y'all trust each other?
Mm,
That's my number one. Is what is it that you have seen in each other that makes you want to stay as a party, and why would you? Because this is an adventure sort of thing. Why are you willing to put your life in this guy's hands?
sure, but that's kind of making the assumption that some sort of bond has already been
Yeah.
put together, right?
Hmm.
So I guess when you're trying to develop the relationship, um, you like to pull at that thread of like, okay, so this person is a person that you obviously, we're not starting with a you meet in a tavern. This is a person that you just met.
Hmm.
You're saying, okay, you're traveling with this person, you trust them for some reason, and then you pull at that thread to kind of tease out what sort of relationship
Yep.
they're likely to want with that character.
Exactly.
I
That's
got
just the
you.
beginning because it's like trust is like the linchpin of all parties and relationships that at least that's the way I think. So that's like the
Yeah,
very
no,
beginning.
me too. That's what I said actually. That's what I already said. I said that. It was, yeah, start with why you trust these people. But forget what I said about establish.
So
No,
thinking already that you've already done something that you either trust them wholeheartedly or they trust you, and at least a good majority that they're willing to travel with you and
hmm,
fight to keep you alive. That's a good start. That's always a really good way to begin. And then with trust comes the flowering of all other relationships. Really, at least to me, it
yeah,
does.
yeah. I would, well, I would say that actually, I would say if I were going to delve a layer deeper than trust, and go, why would you trust someone? I would say that most relationships are predicated on respect. And
You know
and
what? I actually like that one a little bit better.
and you trust someone because you respect them, and you
Yeah.
know things about them that you think embody certain moral virtues, and that breeds respect. So
Hmm.
if I were going to push kind of a layer deeper, that's what I would say. I would say that you all the warm and fuzzy stuff that you feel for someone is like it's much more important to respect someone, because then that can blossom into kind of the warm and fuzzy, like, I mean, if you're anything like me, like, and most men, I think you don't have warm and fuzzy moments with most of your friends because you don't really need to. You just kind of know that you respect each other, and that's kind of that. And it's a, to
Hmm.
me, that's like a almost a higher order. It's like, well, let's not lose sight, because it's really easy to have affection in a superficial way for someone that can cloud your judgment. But if it's not predicated on respect, then it probably is pretty fleeting. And if it is predicated on respect, you don't need to. Um, I don't know about you, but I've never made friends with someone that I don't respect, ever, and I don't think I ever will. And um, but that said, I think there's some ways to kind of almost almost like retroactively kind of establish a bond. Is that what you were kind of like thinking of too, Matt? Is
Yep.
like if you're starting with the characters already kind of having a relationship, then how do you maybe not establish the bond, but actually illustrate and flesh out the bond that you feel is subtextually already there? Is that
That's
fair to say?
exactly it. Yep.
Um, I One of the more overlooked ways to do that is by having a shared language.
Mm.
Um, this seems like a really minor thing, but it isn't. It can't be overstated that when you spend a lot of time around someone, you have a tendency to kind of mirror and share the language that they say. You have a particular turn of phrase that you both use with each other, or that you use because it's a harkening back to some sort of inside joke, to some sort of history, to some sort of thing, even if it's just superficial. A good example of this is actually in Critical Role. The barbarian and the halfling, they call each other buddies,
Hmm.
right? Buddies. Like that's like the language they use, and it's their shared, like, just one word, but it's a shared thing that like communicates that they have some sort of connection. Um, and characters, players miss an opportunity to do that, and it's such an easy thing to do. Do you have any players that do that, Matt, or is it just, are you like me where it's just like something you don't really think about and it never comes up?
Yeah. Unless I bring it up, my players never do.
Hmm.
So, yeah, no, I try, but even I will kind of hold back for a little while before I try to bring it up.
Yeah, it's, but if you think of the people that you know and that you have strong relationships with, you're probably always hearkening back to something,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And there's a shared
24 years
language.
later, I still say you're hitting me. What are you doing?
You're hitting me, what are you doing? Or I totally believe you, dude.
Yeah.
Or what was the one I sent you the other day? The damn right. Fucking Bill and Ted's
Yeah.
Bogus Journey. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
because it's like that's a the shared memory that we
Hmm.
have, and we both just, every time we think about it, like, God damn, this focus is still funny, like 30 years later, or whatever. Um, and this one, segueing into my next point. This is something that needs to be stated, but I suspect a lot of players actually already do. But probably could kind of peel the onion a little bit more when it comes to this particular point. On the same token of shared language is shared interests. So, in particular, in a party, you go, okay, what are the things that I might have in common with this person? In particular, activities. And generally speaking, it would be in the party, it's like you're kind of like you like drinking and like womanizing, right? And so you kind of like this other party member that's like down for that, and maybe you have the more straight-laced like leader type of the party, and the more
Mm,
kind of quiet, reserved cleric. But like the barbarian and the thief are like they bond, even though they're very different. They're just like, yeah, we're trying to like get some wine and get some wenches, right? Um, but you could probably peel that onion a little bit more to go like, what are some shared interests? Because interests are usually a reflection of values. And when I think about friends that I have in the real world, um, generally speaking, you have friends that are for a certain purpose. Matt is my podcasting partner and my gaming buddy, and we both like to bowl, and so and we both. I mean, we're such good friends because we like a lot of the same things. But
yeah.
like, I have a friend that I play pool with predominantly, and I have friends that I play chess with. Matt doesn't play chess,
Mm,
and so I have friends that I play chess with, and we kind of bond over those shared interests. And I have friends that like I smoke cigars with. So like Patrick, that's in our game, like I talk cigars with him because I know he smokes cigars a lot. And so you have like this shared interest and try to think of ways in which it can manifest in the game, in particular in downtime and during travel time, that would manifest in a way that your characters can kind of like forge a bond. Am I off base in my assumption that your players are probably the best about that?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Actually, there's one, you know what, I'll tell you right now that my players usually go to.
mm,
Well, at least with my Thursday group, because I've been
mhm.
running for them more than anybody else recently. Where they go now is I'm so cautious around this dude or of this dude that I don't want him to go too far away. So it's more like, I don't trust him, or he is so scary that I'd rather be close to him and work with him than be against him.
Keep him and keep an eye on him, so to
Yes.
speak. No, that's a good one too. It kind of segues into another point that I had, but I wanted to finish up the
Hmm.
shared trifecta, shared language, shared interest, and shared history. And this is another thing you can shoehorn in. And before I kind of elaborate on that a little bit, I wanted to ask you about this particular thing because I was talking with Diana about this, and one of the things that she told me was, yeah, sometimes with character backstory in particular, it can be kind of difficult to kind of know where you are with another player because you don't want to like step on their toes for their backstory by kind of assuming or inserting yourself into some sort of history.
Hmm.
And so you kind of like err on the side um, of not doing that. And what I told her was, is I think generally speaking in role playing games, the rule of kind of improv, which is to say yes, generally applies. But do you, I guess, one, do you agree that that rule of improv generally applies? And two, do you find players that have apprehensions about kind of saying like, oh yeah, we served in the war together with another character or whatever?
Yes, yes. I don't know if you've noticed, but I get very loose with that sort of thing, and I'll just say some shit to
No,
another player.
you're
And
great about it.
but a lot of times they'll kind of look at me and be like, I guess, yeah, is that okay? Just like, yeah, it's fine, dude. Just like you said, it's the improv thing. Yes, and going off, building a story together.
Yeah,
My players, they have a really hard time with that, and
do they?
I think because of the Daggerheart one shot that we just did on Thursday, I really opened up their kind of improv to games itself, because I did a lot more. I was, like I said, reading through the book. I did a lot more of the asking questions.
Hmm.
When we first showed up, the first thing I said was, in this city that you came to, there's something that you've never seen before, and you do this as well a lot
Hmm.
now, but I do it a lot more often now, where I'm not exactly just asking direct questions, but I'll describe something of the city, and I say, but there's something there that is just odd to you, and I'll choose one of the players. I say, what is the odd thing that everybody sees, and they'll describe it, and I'll go off of that, and then I'll use that description that they just had and bring it as they walk through the city, and then I'll ask a little more questions that really open them up, and they really enjoyed that. So I'm hoping that kind of opens up more
Hmm.
communication between them all, that when we start playing, they can put together that we used to know each other, or we fought in the war together, or something like that.
It's yeah, because there are some things that like we bag a lot on this show about people that don't do kind of character backstory work, um, and probably rightfully so. But there's a benefit to not having really much backstory to your character is that it gives you a lot of freedom to kind of like craft it within the narrative of the
Hmm.
game. And bitch, no one cares. Okay. Yeah, because like if you don't have a well-crafted backstory like in Barbarians of Lemura, like the characters are all just kind of like, they have kind of like a vague backstory with some careers and stuff, but there's so much flexibility and actually I've noticed that even just in the what 1, 2, 3, 4 what have we played 5 or 6 sessions of Barbarians of Lemura?
Yeah, yeah.
And but I've noticed that it just kind of gives the players a little more flexibility and freedom. Like your character will be like, "Oh yeah," and a move that Loxo and I have like, rehearsed
Hmm.
before, like I bound off his shoulder and spring up with my spear. It's like it's within the context of combat and it's just like one line, but it communicates like, "Yeah, you've been traveling together for a while. You have a few set moves like teammates on a sports team or something."
Hmm.
And that is kind of what got me thinking about like this concept of shared history. And so, yeah, you don't want to like I don't know very many players that would be like, "Oh yeah, like when we were in the war together," and then the other character being like, "No, I served in the war alone." Like that never happened, right? Like they're not gonna do that. They'll probably
I
just
was
try
a
to figure out a
POW for 5 years.
right. They'll just try to figure out a way to make it work. So shared history is a great way to forge a relationship with a character because it's like some sort of experience that you can kind of project onto your current circumstances. Um, and some of those things can even be a real slow burn where you just don't really, um, yeah, like sometimes this will happen to me like in the real world sometimes. I'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like, I've known that guy for like 30 years, and we used to work together over here or whatever." And it's like kind of like recontextualizes their whole dynamic. Um, and so you can always do that retroactively, and I think it adds depth to your characters and also gives you a springboard for like how do you develop the relationship moving forward based on this shared history. Do you have
Mm.
anything to add on that point?
No, that encompasses pretty much everything that I've ever like. This actually more than I've gotten into. Definitely something that I would like to write down and use later on.
It Another key element that I suspect doesn't play out in games as frequently. Well, I can't say that. I don't know. I don't know what plays out in games that aren't my games, but um, the whole concept of having some sort of rivalry with someone um, within the party. Again, rivalry is often predicated on respect, but it doesn't give rise to it's weird because like it's like respect gives rise to rivalry, and then long-term rivalries often lead to kind of friendships, even begrudging
Yeah.
friendships. Figure out ways in which the your character can compete with the other PCs or NPCs um, without having it cross the line into like enmity. Enmity. How do you say that word?
Enmity.
Enmity. Becoming enemies with someone. um, this played out very nicely in my fourth edition campaign with um, my cousin Cody and my ex-wife Jen. So Jen played in our campaign, and Jen was a halfling rogue, and Cody was a Goliath barbarian. I mean, they really couldn't have been more different. But what they were both striker roles, and what they were both really good at was one-to-one damage, like doing one-to-one damage, doing a lot of damage to a single target with one attack.
Mm.
They were both really good at that, and Cody really leaned into the idea that like his character was kind of put upon by this 3 foot, 45 pound like woman who could like dole out like nearly as much damage as this 8 foot tall, hulking barbarian with like a two-handed axe or whatever. And he was just like, so he developed kind of this rivalry with her, and it kind of like enriched and deepened their relationship and their bond as characters. And I thought it was super duper fun.
It's the
Um,
Legolas and Gimli relationship.
yeah, maybe. So, but yeah, so you can just kind of look at that like, what is it your skill set is, who is competing with you for glory, for whatever personal pride, and that rivalry can deepen and strengthen relationships. I wish that were more prevalent in some of the games that I've had, um, but I suspect that party cohesion often and siloing off um, character roles, right? Like I'm the healer, you're the defender, you're the controller, and so it's hard to have a rivalry with somebody that has such a differing skill set to you.
Mm.
But if you drill down into it, there's probably reasons, a paladin and a cleric are pretty different roles in a party, but they're both, vying for glory in the eyes of their god, especially if they shared a god. There could be a rivalry there. There could be a rivalry among elf and half elf, or, between striker roles or defender roles or whatever. You could try to parse it out and figure out ways in which you can um, you're measuring yourself against another person, and so that's kind of what you're looking for. And if you look, you don't have to look very hard to find ways in which you would be measuring yourself against people like in your party, because it's often, again, it's the analogy, the best analogy is probably just a sports team, like you
Mm.
push yourselves to be the best version of yourself, and rivalry can play out in those ways. So and on a similar note, this one came up because I realized forging a character relationship kind of somewhat near the idea of rivalries, but it came up because of our Barbarians of Lemur game. And again, I was thinking about the relationship that you and Cody kind of have just kind of crafted a little bit, like between your two characters. Not so much the other two characters in the party, but your two characters seem to have kind of this history. And
Hmm.
some of that comes out through the annoyances that you have with each other.
Yeah.
And I really like that. It almost makes you seem like an old married couple. Like you're traveling with this person precisely because they're different than you, because they have different skills than you. But if you travel with them long enough, you're likely to be kind of chafed a little bit by some of their more obnoxious quirks. Um, and if you can figure out ways in which those annoyances might bubble to the surface, like Cody's character thinks that maybe you're a little too headstrong, and you think that he's a little too, like, hapless and doesn't really like think things through, and you have this out in just small moments of dialogue and character moments, can really go a long way.
Um, when you think of character relationships and how you're even talking about using mechanics in the games, um, again, I know I keep going to Daggerheart here in the campaign frames, but this is the latest thing that I've read, so I'm going to keep bringing it up.
Sure.
Um, in Five Banners Burning, the the campaign frame for that, one of the main mechanics is faction relationships as
Hmm.
well as interpersonal relationships, and there's a scale that they all go on, and it almost worked, or from when I was reading it, uh, it works a lot like becoming bloodbound and vampire almost. Like as soon as you reach to a certain point, you're in this standing with them, and then you can get away. You can ask for these sort of favors and this going here. But if you are negative, because it goes from -3 to +3. If you're in the negative, then these are all the bad things that will happen if you even come across these people. Uh, Anywhere from 0 to -3, and of course on -3, it's almost as if it's kill on sight. You're that much of an enemy to them. But what would you think of more games coming out with that, like almost like a inner party reputation system, where, because we do it in ours every now and then, they'll say, I want to use a persuasion check on another party member, and usually you'll have us roll a test against it, But what do you think of like if there was a reputation system that gave you bonuses to your role to inner party uh, kind of things like that,
I'm not a big
social mechanics?
I'm a big fan of it for things that are external to the party, but within the party, the only time I really call for a war roll is when there is actually some tension that can't be resolved role playing wise.
Hmm.
You go like, okay, like you're having some sort of tension, and then one of the characters just says like, "No, I just want to browbeat him into like agreeing with me." And you go, "Okay, that you're throwing down the gauntlet, you're saying you're calling for a roll, let's let the dice decide this, right?" But having some sort of mechanic system to foster inter-party dynamic, I suspect would ultimately sterilize those relationships more than bolster them. And that's just because, generally speaking, when something has like a very codified mechanic, it takes the thinking and the kind of more thoughtful role-playing aspects out of something, and those have appropriate uses, right? Like
Hmm.
I think that in a combat situation, you shouldn't have someone's bonus or how well they're doing be predicated on how flavorful their description is, because that's unfair to players that aren't as good at that. But within the inter-party, these relationships are being crafted among the characters, and I suspect that making it numerical in some way would undermine the stakes of the inter-party dynamics, and those ought not be super high, but it's a real long game with the inter-party dynamics, and they should come to fruition um, over the course of the campaign through thoughtful role playing
Hmm.
and cultivation, and putting a number to it. I would suspect would just um, kind of make players feel like they didn't need to do that. They could just kind of reduce everything to a roll and kind of cultivate some sort of number and stat. And I'm not a big fan of that. I am a bigger fan of it for like the external world,
Yeah.
where you have like an honor score or a
Hmm.
reputation score. It's like, here's how you interact with like everybody outside of your party. But the reason that I think that's all right is that the relationships that you forge in a bonding sort of way with your party mates should be handled in a more intimate way. Maybe that's
Hmm.
overly sentimental of me, I'm not sure, but
No, because it got me thinking just now that one of the better in-game character relationship bonding points that came within the game, and it kind of sucked. It was right before Mike left. Is we went to Mike's character's home farm, where he grew up, met his mother and all that, and like we had a session that about like an hour and a half of just role playing at his old farmhouse,
yeah. It's like a
and
bottle episode, yeah.
yeah, and it was very cool. And I felt like that was really good character bonding. Uh,
Hmm.
like because Mike got into it a lot, and Mike's is one the biggest role player.
Yeah.
But he was just like, yeah, we'll go out to the bar, to the barn, and I'll show you my old Playboys or some shit like that. I was like, all right, I see where you're going. You're trying. Good for you,
Yeah.
dude. I like it.
Yeah, and I was, yeah, him leaving the group kind of robbed the ability of us having some sort of catharsis where he either leaves the party to go back and protect his mother, or goes on to kind of greatness. He was at this crossroads. I was
Hmm.
really liked setting up that character moment. But yeah, it kind of goes back to my point about like mutual respect. This is another way in which you can forge character relationships, is to just kind of think of the ways in which there are mutual respect. And we tiptoe around it and don't really handle it very much, because we don't. I don't want to speak for you. I don't like having romance in my games.
Yeah,
Um,
I find it
it's
gets
it's
messy.
it, but mutual respect, the flip side of that coin would be like attraction. Is there a character in some way that you might have an attraction to? It might even not be a romantic attraction,
Hmm.
it's it could just be kind of a, like a bromance kind of thing. But certainly, if it is a romantic attraction, you can think of ways in which you might lean into that. I think it often gets awkward from a role playing standpoint where you have one character in the game, one player in the game that is kind of like behaving in a way that he's attracted to another character. There's no way around it because either those two people in real life are attracted to each other, and in which case that just feels kind of weird, like you have a husband and wife or whatever they're playing together.
Uh-huh.
Maybe if it's a real long-standing relationship, like a couple that's been together 10 years, they could do it. Or you're
This is
not.
a yeah, hold on. I got to bring this up because I think it's a great story. When I ran Star Wars D20 version years ago, for it was Rob, his girlfriend Janet, our buddy Randy, and our buddy Jason. And Rob and Janet, like I said, were a couple, and he was just like, "Yeah, we can play a couple in the game." And Janet was like, "I'm gonna play a dude." And he was like, "That's okay. I'll play a chick, or we could be a gay couple." And she was just like, "No."
That's weird.
She was just like, "No, we're together enough. We don't have to be in the game either." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, Janet, way to go!" And this is her first time ever playing a role playing game. I was like, "Way to fucking lay it down, dude."
But yeah, you could. I mean, and if the characters are not like the players are not like romantically entangled, then it's kind of weird to kind of like play as though you are.
Yeah. Hmm.
But that is kind of you can kind of. I would think it would probably be better, almost, to hint at retroactively that maybe your characters were kind of involved romantically or whatever because frankly you're like adventurers, there's not like likely to be a traditional courtship and all that, right?
Hmm.
But maybe there's like hooked up one time like a long time ago or whatever, and that could be a source of some sort of like backstory tension, flirtation, which kind of brings me to my next point of how you can establish character relationships. This may or may not be flirtatious, but in character banter, like speaking in character and trying to have some sort of like witty exchange or banter with another character, either flirtatious in a romantic sense or just in a kind of Aaron Sorkin kind of back and forth sort of way, um, can really go a long way toward um, making a relationship between two characters seem kind of lighthearted, and also could go a long way toward maybe establishing some sort of rivalry, frenemy situation. A lot of old movies are really good at this. In particular, movies with like Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. They have like a lot of real good like banter, like this back and forth, and it makes you feel like their relationship has texture because it hints at a synergy that they've had where they kind of like understand each other's minds and they kind of like are it's like a sparring match, and so that's fun and can kind of hint that there is a previous history there and actually make there be a stronger bond moving forward within the context of the game.
I wanted to ask you, since we're getting into the end here,
Mhm.
I don't want to step on your toes if you still got other stuff to talk about. Uh, what do you think?
I got one other point I wanted to
Let's
make.
go. Let's go ahead and finish you out because mine is kind of like a end all question here.
Sure. So the final thing that I would say, as a way to kind of establish relationships, is not from a more writerly, poetic, ethereal, kind of ephemeral character way, but actually is to lean into the roles of your characters and try to figure out when there are small moments when you can add some sort of context or meaning to the things that give your character a uniqueness,
Mm,
right? If you're the party's tank and your goal and your role in the party is to protect the wizard, then you do that in a battle. Try to think of a way in which you can demonstrate that relationship, because it's almost like a working relationship, right? Your working relationship is like your defenseman and you protect the goaltender, right?
Hmm.
But even just a small thing where like a guy is, an enemy is barreling toward the wizard and you intercept him and you bash him to the ground with your shield and shank him with your sword. And so that's cool. You have like this cinematic moment, but like looking over your shoulder at the wizard and just kind of giving him a little like, like shoulder, like, like I got you, or if you're the healer, you heal someone and that's your role in the party, you can lean into that by having a quip or having a moment or even just a small like smile like to a character that lets you know like I got you, you're the tank and you're taking all sorts of fucking damage, and like that's what I'm here for. I'm here to heal you because we're part of a team, right? Just minor moments that lead into whatever your role in the party is, um, I think can can help bolster those character relationships, and it's almost more of a class based or role based um, thing that if you just thought about like just very 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 minor minimalistic things, if they're done over a long arc, you kind of go like if you're the wizard in the party and that happens a few times with the tank and you go like wow, like if it wasn't for me or if it wasn't for this guy in the armor at the front line, in so many ways, I would be dead. And really, when you're in an adventuring party, that's really what it comes down to is that the reason you trust these people is because they've likely, in a lot of ways, saved your life in some way.
Hmm.
And the accepting that and trying to internalize it, I think would have pretty good rewards, like for a role playing scenario where you go like, maybe the fighter's not my particular like I don't really get along with him, right? He's kind of dopey and he's kind of, knuckle dragging and he likes wine and women and I'm more studious and I'm but like this dude saved my life on
Yeah.
multiple occasions and he lets me know that he does the reason he does what he does is to protect me because he thinks that what I do is valuable. And
Hmm.
it's like that again back to the point of mutual respect. Like fuck man, like that's okay, yeah, that's a good guy in my estimation and it's the foundation for any good relationship.
Yeah, this is what made me think of because I wanted to bring this up and ask you, but almost thinking of it like the barbarian. Protects the wizard because the wizard reads to him at night when they're going to sleep or something.
Yeah,
And
something
I
like
thought
that,
that was
right.
fucking cool. But I wanted to ask you, kind of like final thoughts here. Now that we've talked about it and that I haven't played much in the different way, but where do you find character relationships, or where is your favorite part of making character relationships? Like I was already saying that I try to make them at the beginning. I want there to already be these connections that they come up with. But I will say, playing in our games recently and reading some of the games that I have been, I'm starting to think otherwise. I'm thinking of maybe relationships are better created through play and maybe not even at the first like maybe it should be more towards like the fifth, sixth session even. But what would yours be?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one that's better than the other if it gets good results.
Hmm.
If it leads to the players having character dialogue, having fun moments, having things that like demonstrate their loyalty. So what you're trying the whole point of character relationships, at least in my estimation, is to demonstrate the character's merits. Like, so you have heroic moments precisely because of the relationships. That's a way of saying that the heroic moment has some stakes to it. However, you can achieve that and have it be cathartic for the players in some way, I would say is a good thing. I would be probably more of a fan of relationships that start at the beginning of the campaign
Hmm.
should be should be building throughout the campaign, and relationships that are already established prior to the campaign should be tested throughout the campaign.
Okay.
I think that's a better method because it's like you have a long-standing relationship with someone and having that relationship tested kind of adds complexity and nuance to it. Why do I continue to, in what ways does this person annoy me? Do I have a rivalry with them? Is there, are we redefining the nature of our relationship? Is something blossoming from mutual respect into a romance, or is this character always been kind of uh, a mentor to me? Maybe they were like a mentor and I was their protege, and now we're kind of becoming equals because of, I'm coming into my own or whatever. Redefining and establishing relationship is interesting, and growing a relationship that starts in the campaign is interesting. Um, I would say just don't kind of invert them. I think if you
Hmm.
invert them, that's where you get problems, where it's like a newly forged relationship is being tested really early, and a well-established relationship is just on cruise control. That's a recipe for stagnation, and I don't want to see stagnation with the dynamics between my characters.
Agreed. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. For all of you out there that might want to add on to our conversation here, hey, just send it on over to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we missed. Let us know what we should add on to it, or help us out. Give us some shit to talk about. Send in your ideas. What should we talk about? What topics do you want to hear? What can we blabber on about for an hour or so? Uh, Send it in. Let us know. Or you can come on over. Watch us live at twitch.tv/Inside the GM Studio. Same thing with YouTube. Go to YouTube, look up Inside the GM Studio. Watch us every Sunday, usually around 9 p.m. Eastern. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I've been your host, Matt.
And I am David.
Good night.